Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's first story is about a couple who made a simple change to their own property, only to be treated like villains by their neighbors. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbors put their AC unit right by my bedroom. We decided to continue our fence down the side yard to block the noise coming from our neighbor's AC unit. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or some petty reaction. It was something we talked about, measured, priced out, and sat on for a while before actually doing it. For context, we live in a bungalow, and the bedrooms are along the side of the house. The space between our house and theirs is about 8 feet wide. Instead of placing their AC unit anywhere sensible, they installed it directly in that narrow side yard, almost perfectly aligned with our bedroom windows. Not offset, not tucked toward the back, right there. When it kicks on, the sound bounces between the two houses like it's in a tunnel. At night, it's especially bad. Low, constant mechanical humming that seeps through the walls and windows, and they run it constantly. We tried to be patient at first. Summer heat happens. AC units are normal. We didn't complain right away. But after night of being woken up or struggling to fall asleep in the first place, it became clear this wasn't something we could just get used to. The noise isn't occasional, it's every night, often late into the evening, sometimes all night long. Earplugs help a little, but they're not a real solution when it's your own bedroom in your own house. On top of the noise issue, their AC unit completely blocked access to their side of the property. Instead of adjusting their setup or creating proper access on their own land, they just started using ours. They'd walk down our side yard to get to their gate, trampling the grass over and over again. Over time, it got so bad that the grass on our side's basically destroyed. It's compacted dirt now, and we're going to have to lay new sod because of it. They never asked, never said, "Hey, can we pass through here temporarily?" They just treated it like it was fine, like our side yard was an extension of theirs. So between the constant AC noise and the damage to our yard, we decided to extend our fence down the side yard. The primary goal was to mitigate the noise as much as possible. The fence acts as a partial sound barrier, and while it doesn't eliminate the noise completely, it does help. It also clearly defines the property line and stops people from casually walking through our yard. The fence is entirely on our property, about 2 inches in from the property line to be safe. We paid for it ourselves, no shared cost, no encroachment. We followed the rules. And that's when things really went south. Now that their access to their gate's blocked, they're furious. We overheard them outside calling us names to other neighbors, loudly enough that it's clearly meant for us to hear. The relationship, such as it was, is completely soured at this point. What's frustrating is that they genuinely seem to think we're the unreasonable ones. From their perspective, we've inconvenienced them. They now have to figure out another way to access their own gate. They act like this fence came out of nowhere just to spite them. What they don't seem to grasp or refuse to acknowledge is why we did it in the first place. Their AC unit disturbs us every single night. It's right outside our bedroom windows. We found a solution that helps us sleep in our own home. That solution happens to inconvenience them, but only because of choices they made. They placed the AC unit in a terrible spot. They blocked their own side yard. They used our property without permission. They didn't seem to care at all when their decisions were inconveniencing us. Now that the inconvenience flows the other way, suddenly it's a problem. What really gets under our skin is the lack of accountability. There's no acknowledgement that maybe the AC placement was poorly planned. No recognition that using our yard wasn't okay. No understanding that people are allowed to make changes on their own property to protect their comfort and peace. Instead, the blame is entirely on us. We're the villains for putting up a fence on our own land. We're the bad neighbors for wanting quiet at night and a yard that doesn't get destroyed. We didn't build the fence out of spite. We built it out of necessity. If the AC hadn't been placed there, if they hadn't treated our side yard like a walkway, this probably would never have happened. But they made choices that affected us, and we responded by protecting our space. They just don't like the consequences of their own decisions. At this point, we're done trying to explain it. We've solved our problem, the fence is up, the noise is at least reduced, and our property is clearly defined. If that inconveniences them, that's unfortunate, but it's not our responsibility to make their poor planning easier at the expense of our comfort. People always get loudest when consequences arrive quietly. They didn't mind when their AC placement affected your sleep, and they didn't care when their footsteps destroyed your grass. But now that the inconvenience lands on them, suddenly it's a moral issue. And our next story. His solution to me wasting money at Albertsons was to try and take my debit card. The logic of a control freak is a mysterious thing. I, 29-year-old female, moved into a new apartment about a year ago, and I have a roommate, 55-ish male, who's been a major thorn in my side pretty much since day one. I genuinely don't know what his deal is. Some people I've talked to think he acts like this because he has some kind of romantic interest in me, which is, no, absolutely not. Totally ew. I don't usually judge age gaps in relationships, but a gap of more than 20 years combined with his personality? Hard pass forever. Personally, I think the real issue is that he's a controlling, miserable jerk who can't stand not being in charge of everything. I have so many examples of him being a mean little control freak that I could write a whole series about it. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to call him CF, short for control freak. If people are interested, I've got plenty of stories, but this one's small. Not the worst thing he's done, just a nice early preview of the nonsense I was signing up for without realizing it. This happened not long after I moved in. I was still settling, still learning his habits, still trying to be polite and give him the benefit of the doubt. At the time, I did most of my grocery shopping at Albertsons. It's the closest grocery store to our apartment, and honestly, I like it. I still do. They have solid deals, good sales, and I actually enjoy walking through a grocery store, picking my own produce, comparing prices, and grabbing things on impulse when something looks good or is discounted. One afternoon, I came home with a few armfuls of grocery bags. Nothing excessive, just normal food. CF happened to be in the common area and immediately noticed. "Where'd you get all that?" he asked. I told him I'd gone to Albertsons. You'd think I just told him I robbed a bank. He got visibly annoyed and told me I shouldn't be shopping there. He said I should use the grocery delivery service he uses instead. He talked it up like it was the greatest invention humanity had ever produced, like it would solve all of my problems if only I'd listened to him. At the time, he framed it as a suggestion, a pushy, weird suggestion, but still a suggestion. I told him I'd keep it in mind and went on with my day. And to be clear, I had zero intention of keeping it in mind. I like shopping in stores. I like seeing what I'm buying. I like controlling my spending. Delivery services cost more, have fees, and half the time substitute items without asking. I find grocery stores far more convenient for how I live. About a week later, I went shopping again. Same deal, Albertsons, a few bags. I came home, arms full, already tired, just wanting to put my food away and relax. CF was there again. Once more, he asked how I got the groceries. I told him I went to the store. This time, he didn't just get huffy. He went quiet for a few seconds in that way that immediately makes you uncomfortable. Then he looked at me and said, completely seriously, that I needed to give him my phone and my debit card. I actually thought he was joking for a second, like there was no way a grown man was seriously telling me to hand over my personal belongings. He wasn't joking. He said he was going to sign me up for the grocery delivery service whether I liked it or not. His exact attitude was basically, you clearly can't make good decisions for yourself, so I'll do it for you. I just stared at him. I remember thinking, who the hell do you think you are? I told him no, flat out. He didn't get to touch my phone or my card. He only backed off when I said my card wouldn't even have enough money on it that moment for whatever service he was pushing. That was the only thing that stopped him. Not boundaries, not logic, just the inconvenience to him. As he walked away, he rolled his eyes and threw out, "You'd have enough money if you didn't waste it all at Albertsons." I didn't even respond. I just put my groceries away in silence, went to my room, and booted up Mortal Kombat 11. I played for a few hours just to cool off and not think about how wildly inappropriate that whole interaction was. Even now, I still can't understand why he cared so much. My groceries didn't affect him. My money wasn't his. My shopping habits didn't change his life in any way. But somehow, in his head, it was his job to control it. That was when I realized this wasn't just a one-off weird moment. This was a pattern. CF didn't see me as a roommate. He saw me as someone who needed to be managed, corrected, and overridden. And unfortunately, this was just the beginning. Does he not realize that delivery services have add-on costs for the delivery? More likely, he's hoping to get some kind of discount or payback for referring new customers and doesn't give a crap about how increased costs will impact OP. They thought they were flipping a restaurant to a sucker. The sucker flipped their entire operation into bankruptcy court. A few decades back, I found myself mixed up with a group of guys who all had a little cash and the same problem. None of us trusted the stock market, and all of us wanted something tangible, something you could touch, walk into, and theoretically control. After a lot of beer-soaked conversations and half-baked ideas, we settled on buying into a restaurant franchise. I won't say which one because that would make this story far too easy to trace back to me, and frankly, I like my anonymity. On paper, it looked solid. The numbers were clean, the brand had recognition, the prospectus showed consistent revenue, modest growth, and a customer base that supposedly kept the place humming. We were assured this particular location was a strong performer and that the current manager was eager to move on to other opportunities. Everything had that glossy, too smooth feel, but nothing obvious jumped out as wrong. Then my partners got cold feet. One by one, they found reasons to step back. One had family concerns, another suddenly decided commercial real estate was his true passion, a third just stopped returning calls. Unfortunately for me, I'd been the point man from day one. My name was on the paperwork, my signature was on the loan documents. When the dust settled, I was the proud new owner of a restaurant I never intended to run alone. At first, I told myself it'd be fine. Plenty of people run franchises successfully. I hired staff, learned the systems, and tried to get a handle on daily operations. That's when things started feeling off. The first red flag was the revenue. According to the prospectus, the place should have been doing far more business than it actually was. Not slightly more, not seasonal dip more. We're talking about a gulf big enough to drive a truck through. Either the numbers I'd been shown were wildly optimistic or money had been flowing through this place in ways that didn't involve cash registers. Then there were the customers. I'd be behind the counter or in the office when someone would call and ask for their usual. Not a menu item, not a standing catering order, just their usual. They'd get irritated when staff didn't know what they meant. A few would hang up abruptly if pressed for details. Some would wander in, look around, realize something had changed, and walk right back out without ordering a thing. The former manager, it turned out, was not pleased with me. I started getting visits, not confrontational ones, at least not directly, just lingering. People stopping by who didn't order anything, long stares, conversations that went quiet when I walked into the room. It became clear that whatever had been happening before I arrived, my presence had disrupted it. Life gets very unfun when you realize you've sunk 6 figures into a business and the business you thought you bought is not the business that was actually operating. But I'm not the type to panic. I get methodical. The first call I made was to the accounting firm listed on the prospectus. Their name and logo were right there, stamped neatly on the financials that had convinced us to buy. I asked to speak to the partner who'd signed off. There was a pause. Then I was told politely but firmly that no one by that name worked there. That got my attention. I drove over to their office the same afternoon, sat down with 2 partners and their legal counsel, laid the documents on the table. They went pale, very pale. Their firm had never reviewed, audited, or approved any of the financials I'd been shown. Their name had been used without permission, and that was not something they took lightly. I spent several hours there that day. By the time I left, they were very interested in helping me untangle what I'd stepped into. Their reputation was on the line, and they were not about to let it be dragged through the mud quietly. Next stop, the franchisor. I explained that I wanted out immediately. The response was enlightening. They were happy to put the location back on the market, they said, but unfortunately, market conditions had shifted. The value was now significantly lower than what I'd paid less than 3 months earlier. Oh, and before we wrap things up, they need payment for my most recent order from the central commissary. That demand stuck in my craw. I took the commissary price list, the one we were contractually obligated to use, and compared it to market pricing. The franchise agreement was very clear. Buying produce, dairy, or meat from outside the system resulted in fines. The commissary was mandatory. I took the numbers back to the accounting firm. They ran the analysis. Turns out the commissary was charging anywhere from 10% to 300% above market rates depending on the item. This wasn't about consistency or quality control. This was about extraction. The franchisor wasn't building restaurants, they were flipping them, squeeze the operators, force them into distress, buy back cheap, repeat. That report didn't stay with me long. Copies made their way into the hands of about 20 other local franchisees. Suddenly, the commissary trucks weren't welcome. Suddenly, everyone discovered independent suppliers with far better pricing. That's when the district manager started showing up in person, issuing fines and threats. And here's where things got interesting. The district manager was very familiar to the staff at my location. Too familiar. Old habits die hard. He was also remarkably comfortable hanging around after hours. I'd inherited boxes of old security tapes, VHS, back when that was still a thing that no one had bothered to catalog or destroy. Curiosity got the better of me. I reviewed them. Let's just say the footage showed the district manager conducting business that had absolutely nothing to do with burgers, fries, or franchise compliance. Exchanges, conversations, patterns, it painted a very clear picture of why this location had once been so profitable on paper. I took the tape straight back to the accounting firm. They arranged secure storage, chain of custody. Lawyers love chain of custody. Then I went back to the franchisor's headquarters. I told them calmly that their district representative was using my restaurant as a secondary office for extracurricular activities. They laughed, actually laughed, told me I was paranoid, bitter, a failed operator looking for excuses. So I told them two more things. First, that I was the one who distributed the commissary pricing analysis to their franchisees. Second, that liens had already been placed on assets associated with their operation. Buildings, vehicles, personal property, all perfectly legal, backed by documentation. The room got very quiet. I explained that between the fraudulent prospectus, the price gouging, and the activities conducted under their brand, I had more than enough to make their lives deeply unpleasant. I wasn't asking for a negotiation. I was offering them an exit. They disappeared into a back room. When they came back, they had a release agreement and a certified check for every dime I'd put into the franchise. Loan payments, fees, renovations, everything. I signed. What they didn't realize was that all they'd accomplished was removing me personally from the list of people suing them. The evidence didn't vanish. The reports didn't disappear. The other 19 franchisees weren't going anywhere. When the case finally made it to court, I was there, on the stand, walking through the entire mess, step by step, under oath. One of the franchisor's principals stood up at one point and actually said, "Didn't we pay you to shut up?" I corrected him. "No," I said, "you returned money you never should have taken." The judge did not look amused. The aftermath was messy. Assets were seized, businesses dissolved, reputations cratered. I heard one of the principals cried when his Porsche was taken. His wife left shortly after. Funny how loyalty evaporates when the money does. As for me, I walked away whole, wiser, and with a renewed appreciation for reading the fine print and then reading between the lines. That's the scariest kind of trap, when everything looks legitimate enough that you keep telling yourself you're overthinking it. The fake accounting firm signature alone is jaw-dropping, but the fact that it wasn't discovered until you pushed tells you exactly how many people were counting on no one ever checking. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.